Today we examine a chilling chapter of Montana's history, where the echoes of unspeakable violence still linger. It unfolded in 2001 in the quaint town of Florence, nestled in the picturesque Bitterroot Valley. This wasn't a crime hidden in the shadows of the night. It was a brazen, brutal attack in broad daylight, in a place meant for comfort and care. What truly happened inside that unassuming hair salon on a quiet Tuesday morning? And how could such a horrific act occur in front of a busy highway, leaving behind a trail of questions, but no justice for decades? This is the haunting story of the Montana hair salon murders. Hello friends, my name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders. Montana in 2001 was a state known for its stunning, rugged landscapes, home to national treasures like Glacier and Yellowstone National Parks. Its economy was a blend of agriculture, tourism, and natural resource extraction. Judy Martz, the first and only woman to hold the position, was governor. In the autumn of 2001, America was already reeling. Just weeks after the monumental tragedy of the September 11th terror attacks, which created a pervasive sense of vulnerability and unease across the nation, a local horror would unfold. Against the backdrop of national anxiety, 3 women, beloved members of their community, were brutally murdered in the Hair Gallery and All About Nails salon located at 5355 U.S. Highway 93 in Florence. Dorothy Harris, at 62, was the heart of the salon. She had operated several salons before purchasing and remodeling the old Florence post office into the Hair Gallery and All About Nails salon just the year before the murders. By all accounts, Dorothy was a loving mother, wife, and grandmother, well known for her infectious sense of humor, positive attitude, and deep love for life. Cynthia Paulus, 71, was a devoted grandmother, an avid horseback rider, and a passionate Lady Grizz basketball fan. She loved to fish, play golf, and cherish the holiday season when her large family would gather. In a tragic twist of fate, she usually got her nails done on Fridays, but by chance had changed her appointment and was at the salon that Tuesday morning. Brenda Patch, 44, was a perfectionist who loved dogs and had an interest in ceramics, plants, and aquatic gardens. She had become a nail technician 7 years earlier after leaving her job in education. A proud grandmother, she also gave her time to local Little League teams. It's unclear how long she'd been employed at the salon, but she was an integral part of its fabric. These were not strangers. They were beloved members of the community, each with their own lives, passions, and families. That's what makes this so difficult to understand. Why would someone target women so deeply woven into the fabric of their town? The salon, typically closed on Sundays and Mondays, was open like any other Tuesday morning. Dorothy, following a regular routine, had driven to her bank in Stevensville, about 10 miles away, to make the prior week's deposit. She was seen at the bank around 10:30 a.m. Police theorized she arrived back at the salon between 10:45 a.m. and 10:50 a.m., likely entering through the back door that the customers also used. Cindy, by all accounts, had arrived on time for her 10 a.m. nail appointment with Brenda. It was an ordinary morning, bustling with the usual hum of a small-town salon. But the ordinary was about to be shattered. The salon building was lined with windows, easily viewable by passers-by. Its location on a busy highway meant an unobstructed view for countless cars driving by. And yet, in this highly visible location, in the middle of a busy working day, an unknown killer murdered 3 women in a very short span of time. Around 11 a.m., a customer arrived for her hair appointment. As she stepped inside, she made a horrific discovery. Dorothy was lying in a fetal position just inside the salon entrance, in a pool of blood. Shaken, the customer instinctively stepped over Dorothy's body to use the salon phone to call authorities before stepping back outside. She was unaware in that terrifying moment that 2 other victims lay dead in a back utility room. Police arrived shortly after 11 a.m. They found Dorothy dead just inside the back door. It appeared she had been killed just as she stepped inside the salon after returning from her morning banking trip. There was no sign of a struggle where Dorothy was found. But the horror continued. Cindy and Brenda were discovered dead in a back utility room. Unlike Dorothy, there were signs of a struggle in the utility room. It remains unclear whether the women were forced into the back or were already there when the assailant struck. All 3 women had their throats cut with an edged weapon, which was never recovered. None of the victims were bound, and there was no indication of sexual assault. Perhaps the most puzzling early discovery was that robbery was quickly ruled out. No money was missing and the women's purses were undisturbed. Yet 2 beautician capes, one black and one gold, were missing from the scene. This immediately raised a critical question. If robbery wasn't the motive, then what was the motive for such a brutal act? Sometimes it's not what's missing that tells the story, but what's left behind. Could the untouched purses be saying more than we realized? And why take something so seemingly insignificant as capes? Was it a trophy or perhaps a disguise? Beyond the missing capes, a crucial piece of physical evidence was found, a pair of wraparound sunglasses. These were found in the middle of the crime scene and did not belong to any of the victims. Police were unsure if they belonged to the killer or were simply left by someone visiting the salon. These sunglasses, along with fingerprints, DNA, and hair fibers collected at the scene, were sent for testing, vital evidence in an otherwise perplexing case. The brazen nature of the murders in broad daylight truly puzzled investigators, but it also provided their most solid lead, the mysterious, oddly dressed man. The customer who found Dorothy told police there was an oddly dressed man outside the salon when she arrived. She described him as wearing a dark business suit and a tall top hat. Other witnesses also saw the same man nearby. He was described by others as wearing an odd hat, stated as both a tall stovepipe and a fedora, and either a dark suit or a duster-type coat. He was thought to be in his 20s, about 6 feet tall, 180 to 200 pounds, with no facial hair, wearing a white shirt with no tie, and possibly carrying something. A composite sketch was created from the accounts of 5 witnesses who got a good look at him. This oddly dressed man was later seen walking into a wooded area behind an old supper club adjacent to the One Horse Creek Road, just south of Florence. What stood out most to these witnesses was the hat. It wasn't a cowboy hat that was so common for the area. Was this a disguise meant to draw attention, or a misstep by someone who thought they could blend in? Either way, it made him unforgettable. Raleigh County Sheriff Perry Johnson assigned 8 of the department's 26 officers to work the case full-time during the first months, and even stationed 1 officer at the salon 24/7. Johnson also asked for assistance from the FBI and neighboring agencies, signaling the immense challenge of the case. Interviews with family members confirmed that the victims were unrelated and had no connection other than the salon. Police interviews did not turn up any domestic or financial issues for any of the women. Sheriff Johnson initially believed the murders were committed by someone unknown to the women. However, by the 3rd day of the investigation, his belief had shifted. He came to believe the murders were not a random act of violence, but rather committed by a person in the community who had something against one of the victims. He also didn't rule out more than one assailant. Interestingly, some of his officers disagreed with this shift in theory. This internal disagreement highlights the complex and often contradictory nature of unsolved cases. For 7.5 years, the case remained cold, the community gripped by fear. Then, in 2008, officials finally believed they had their suspects. Multiple charges connected to the murders of Dorothy, Cindy, and Brenda were filed against Brian Weber and Lincoln Benavides. Authorities accused Benavides, described as the head of a methamphetamine and marijuana distribution ring in western Montana, of ordering the hit on the women, with Brian Weber allegedly carrying it out. Police theorized the murders were linked to an unpaid drug debt, believing Benavides was owed money by someone tied to one of the victims. But this highly anticipated break in the case quickly crumbled. Who owed the money and which woman was allegedly target was never made public by officials. Crucially, the charges against both men were ultimately dismissed. While both men were later sent to prison for drug-related crimes, prosecutors dropped the murder charges shortly after defense attorneys filed motions alleging prosecutorial and governmental misconduct. Though not admitting to any misconduct by investigators or prosecutors, then U.S. Assistant Attorney Joe Thagard stated publicly that serious errors had occurred. This case echoes the profound doubts surrounding Henry Layer's confession in the Wolf murders, where conviction was prioritized over thorough justice. I've linked that video above and in the description in case you haven't seen it. The reason publicly stated for the dropped charges was due to the death of a potential witness and concerns about the credibility of other witnesses against the men. Yet the defense's allegations of misconduct raise a far more troubling question about the integrity of the investigation and the rush to identify a suspect. It's important to note that while both men admitted their involvement in drug trafficking and distribution, They have always adamantly denied having anything to do with the murders. This leaves the central question unanswered. If not them, then who? The killings had a profound and immediate effect on the Florence community, shattering the illusion of small-town safety. Families and friends grieved, and fear set in across the Bitterroot Valley. Etta's styling salon, the only other salon in town, began locking its doors between customers. Monica Morlock, the owner of the flower shop, started locking her front door when she had to go to the back room. Even the local school began locking every outside entrance except the front door and provided counselors for the students. Extra security was brought in for the girls' basketball tournament. The brutal public nature of the crime made everyone feel vulnerable. The scale of the grief was immense. Approximately 450 friends and family attended Dorothy's funeral at the Florence Highway Baptist Church. Hundreds more gathered at the Dealey Leach Chapel to say their goodbyes to Cynthia. Brenda's memorial service at the Lolo Community Church was also overflowing with hundreds of mourners. Each service a testament to the lives lost and the hole left in the community. The murder of Dorothy, Cindy, and Brenda was featured on America's Most Wanted in December 2001, but tragically it did not generate any viable leads. A $10,000 reward had been offered by the Carol Sund Carrington Memorial Reward Foundation, a testament to the enduring hope for answers. The case was reopened after the charges against Benavides and Weber were dropped, and the Missoula County's Cold Case Unit is now assisting the Raleigh County Sheriff's Office in the ongoing investigation. Piecing together everything we know still leaves us with more questions than answers. The precise timing of Dorothy's return from the bank is critical. We know a client arrived around 11 a.m., saw a man outside, and then found Dorothy just inside the back entrance. What happened in the minutes and hours before that is less certain, and it changes how we read the crime. With timeline A, Cindy arrives for her appointment at 10 a.m. Sometime after that, the assailant enters the shop and forces the women to the back room where he kills them. Dorothy returns from the bank between 10:45 and 10:50 a.m. The offender is already inside. Dorothy is attacked near the back entry, and the assailant slips out. Moments later, the next client arrives. This view treats the attack as rapid and opportunistic once Dorothy walks through the door. With timeline B, Brenda may have arrived earlier in the morning. The assailant gains entry, subdues her, and moves her to the back. When Cindy arrives later, she is forced to the back as well, giving the assailant control of the scene. Dorothy returns from the bank and is attacked at the entrance. The assailant then leaves as the next client pulls in. This timeline suggests planning, patience, and a willingness to stay on site for a significant period. Both timelines fit the limited known facts. The difference is intent. A short window implies a fast escalation. A longer window points to a calculated setup and a suspect who is waiting for Dorothy's predictable mid-morning return. That brings us back to the core question. If the offender remained in the salon for an extended time, why? Was he expecting Dorothy and stayed at the scene until she came back from the bank? Or did something happen earlier that forced him to wait and adapt? Then there are the physical differences. Dorothy was found without signs of a struggle at the back entrance, but Cindy and Brenda had signs of a struggle in the utility room. It could mean Dorothy was taken by surprise immediately upon entering. I believe the killer might have already attacked Cindy and Brenda and then ambushed Dorothy when she walked in. Because another customer arrived at 11 a.m., there was such a short window for the assailant to murder Dorothy and then escape the scene. The missing capes and undisturbed purses, despite robbery being ruled out, are deeply unsettling. It leaves us asking whether the killer wanted to send a message or whether these details point to something far more personal. Then there's the oddly dressed man himself. Was he the killer in a distinct outfit, or was his presence just a coincidence that forever clouded the investigation? Sheriff Johnson's evolving theory, from random violence to a targeted act by someone known in the community, is a common investigative path. But the disagreement among his officers is telling. Without a clear motive emerging from the victims' lives, the targeted theory remains speculative, especially given the brazen nature of the crime. Could the visible location of the salon have been a deliberate choice by the killer, daring law enforcement to catch him? What remains certain is that 3 women lost their lives in the heart of their own community, leaving behind grief that still lingers. Decades later, the Florence salon murders remain an open wound in Montana's history. A seemingly quiet town, a busy highway, and 3 lives brutally taken in broad daylight. We have an eyewitness account of an oddly dressed man, crucial physical evidence sent for testing, and yet no answers. We saw potential suspects arrested, only for charges to be dismissed amidst allegations of governmental misconduct. Did the investigation truly falter, allowing the real killer to escape justice? And in the wake of such a public crime, what does it mean for a community when justice remains elusive for so long, leaving behind only shadows and unanswered prayers? Perhaps the answers have always been in plain sight, hidden in the small details overlooked or dismissed. The question is, will someone finally connect them? If you have any thoughts or theories about this case, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.